All right, here it is. The AYN Thor is in this box. Thought I'd do something a little different today and do a live unboxing, initial impressions. This is not going to be a review video. I'm not going to break down emulation performance in depth or battery life or anything like that today. So make sure to subscribe and follow the channel to see those videos, which will be coming over the next week once I've had more time to spend with this handheld. But today we're going to take it out, look at it, see, general stuff. How does the screen look? How do the controls feel? How does it feel in the hand? And maybe some first impressions of using the dual screen software and that kind of thing. We're doing this live. I don't even know what's in here. They didn't tell me what color, what SKU, what storage, what processor. This is just totally new for both of us right now. So without further ado, let's start opening this up and take a look at the Thor. Look at that sexy beast. Looks like, what else did they send me here? They did send me a TPU grip to go with the handheld. I am excited to check that out. Oh yeah, and AYN did send this over as a review unit. They're not paying me. They didn't tell me what to say. They're not seeing this video before it's published, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to consider that I paid the $300 or so for this device, in my opinion, today. But just, yes, disclaimer, they did send this to me. But again, they don't get to tell me what I say about it. So without further ado, let's start opening this up and see which one we got here. They sent me a Pro 12256 with the clear purple. Interestingly, I know this has sort of been a controversial color because of the kind of opaque bottom glass. So we get to check that out in person and see if it is cool or not. I believe, and actually let me double check real quick. This Q sells for, I think, about $350. Let's just verify that. Yes, so this Pro model is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor in here, and it has the 256 gigabytes of storage, 12 gigabytes of RAM, and that retails for $350. So let's go ahead and open this up and take a look at it. Pretty nice packaging overall. I kind of like it when they do the little box within the sleeve type deal. A little bit of bonus ASMR in there today. Oh, it's actually not a slide out type. It's a magnetic latch, just for fun. Pretty premium. I like it. All right, here we go. Here we go. Oh wait, it's just a piece of foam. This is, I think you insert this in the top cover if you want to hide all the cables through the translucent. There was some survey, I think, about whether people wanted to be able to see those cables. Some people said yes, some people said no. So they decided to just include this black cover. Set that aside for now. Let's see what's in the little box here. I'm assuming this is just going to be like a USB cable or something. And yeah, it's pretty nice USB cable. Feels robust. It's got a nice little metal end on it, and it's got their upside down, their logo on there, so that's kind of fun. But main event here, clear purple. Okay, I thought about backing this, and then I didn't, and I went back and forth, and then in the 11th hour, AYN was nice enough to send me this unit, and I had originally looked at the clear purple. I kind of was turned off by the glass color inside, as some other people were, so let's see how that actually looks in person, and let's just open this up for the first time. And there you go. It is definitely sort of like a milky purple. I will say that it's not my favorite. I kind of just wish it was all translucent. It doesn't look awful, but I think the purple is definitely a polarizing color. So yeah, we'll see on that one. All right, so yeah, just opening it up, we've got kind of a angle 1, angle 2, angle 3. So we get kind of like, I don't know what you would say that is, 110, 135, 180, something like that degrees. I do like that we've got those 3 positions there. I think that that's a pretty natural position, so that's cool. And then let's just take a look at the kind of just fit and finish here. We've got this nice texture on that clear purple plastic. Let's get a little close up there. It does look nice. I think that's going to be quite smudge resistant because it's got that texture and it's not shiny. So yeah, I do appreciate that. And then, same on the front, there's that cable there. I guess we can throw this in the lid if we wanted to have it just be sort of like a dark purple color. And yeah, overall, it's a nice piece of hardware, and it's surprisingly small considering the screen size. I'm not sure if this is even that much bigger than the Flip 2. I don't have one on hand, but it just has less bezels, I think. But yeah, we'll kind of look at that a little bit more in a moment. Hinge feels pretty good. I'm skeptical, like the rest of you, about hinge quality on these devices these days. It seems that they often do have issues, so we'll, Doesn't give me any cause for alarm yet, but when I do some longer term reviews, we'll talk a little bit more about the hinge and whether it's held up in terms of if it's gotten looser or anything like that. So yeah, let's just go ahead and do a quick tour of the device before we power it up and take a look at it. So across the top here, we've got our bumpers, a little bit quiet clicky there. Our triggers, I can already tell you I'm not going to be a huge fan of how small and angular these triggers are, but we'll reserve that thought in full for later. And our hinge, there's not any USB-C ports or headphone jacks or anything like that on the top on this one. So let's go ahead and look at the bottom. And yes, everything is on the bottom here. We don't have any controls on the top whatsoever. So we got volume, we got power, we got our USB-C, which should provide power as well as docking, display out, and all that kind of stuff. Headphone jack, always great. Our TF card slot with a little cover here pops out pretty easily. And we've got a little lanyard holder on either corner, depending on where you want to put that, if you wanted to. And then on the back here, we've got our intake fan. It is pretty small. Hopefully it's not too loud. And then we've got our exhausts. Do take note that the exhausts are pointing backwards on here. They're not pointing up on the top towards the screen, so that's nice. I've played some hinge devices where the heat kind of goes up, and I don't really love that. I think going down and out is better, although if you set it on a table, that might be a bit more restricted. You know, there are these bumps that would prop it up, but just keep that in mind so you're not choking out the airflow if you are putting this down on a table. There's not any like rubber bumps or anything like that to prop it up. So, but yeah, overall, I like the fit and finish, the feel. It feels pretty sturdy. There's not any slop or anything like that. Overall, yeah, I don't actually think it looks or feels too bad in the hand. So I'm going to set this down for just a moment, and then let's turn it on and take a look at the software. Okay, so let's power this on live together. I've got my 512 preloaded SD card ready to go here, so we don't have to tinker around too much. So let's just turn it on. Let's hope this thing's charged from the factory, or else this might be a real short video recording session here. Excellent, we are in luck. Came to me with 98% battery. So let's just go ahead and get this set right up. Pardon me while I put my Wi-Fi details in. All right, we got that set up. Our time zone on the West Coast here. We can do the AOSP launcher or the Thor launcher. The Thor / Retroid style launcher is just kind of okay, so I'm just gonna go with stock Android for now. Gesture navigation, yes. Configuration complete. Start is up here, good spot for it. And there we go, there is the AYN Thor, and oh my goodness. Yeah, initial thoughts are those OLED screens do look super nice next to each other. And let me see, our first test here is how does the brightness, are they independent? They are. So I can dial that one in to look decent. Actually, how do I adjust the brightness on the bottom screen? I guess there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve here, people, to figure out how to do all that. Shoot, maybe the AYN button here. Yes. Okay, so there we go. You tap on the AYN button and you get some software to control all the screens and everything. So now I can adjust my bottom screen brightness independently there. Make it look all pretty on camera. Okay, so there we go. So what do we got? We can't swipe here. We can swipe up here. It's like a duplicate launch. It's interesting. It's going to take some time to get used to this, and we'll do some follow-up videos really diving into how all the software works. So I'm going to continue the trend of looking at the hardware. I'm going to install a button tester app and test all that stuff before we go farther into the software front. So let me stick my SD card in, since that's got everything I need. And then, oh yeah, while we're here, looks like it goes to sleep just fine. Closing the lid, wakes back up. All right, so we got our gamepad tester here. So if you tap down here and then use the gamepad, its focus is on the bottom screen. You tap up here and then now the focus is on the top screen. So that's going to take some getting used to. So we'll make sure we got our focus there. Everything's working. Yes, let's start. Okay, so let's just kind of do the usual tour. D-pad, we'll start there because I already know this is going to be kind of typical AYN Retroid, PS Vita kind of micro switch style, very almost identical feeling D-pad to the PS Vita on this one, which means it's pretty precise. It is pretty easy to get the diagonals, but there's a little bit of wiggle before it registers, so I think it's probably going to be a pretty good D-pad. Never really had any issues with their D-pads. Now the face buttons, this is what I've been waiting for. Are these going to be super loud and annoying because I've had issues with Retroid and AYN buttons before being clacky, so let's listen. Actually, these are pretty pleasant. Let's get a little closer to the mic here. So interestingly, the Y button, it's a little bit more of a thonk than the A button. But these are actually, these are good. These are the best, possibly the best AYN buttons I've tried so far in terms of annoying me. You know, for reference, let's just listen to something like an Xbox controller here, which is pretty loud actually. This is quiet in comparison. This is good. This is good news. I'm excited about this. Vita? Vita is so quiet. I love the buttons on the Vita. A little small, but feel and sound nice. These are definitely louder, but a better size, at least. What else do I got here? I gotta trim my brick. Slightly quieter, not huge difference. How about Switch 2? Buttons are very similar. If you look here, the buttons are a very similar size between the Thor and the Switch 2. Very kind of similar shape as well, which is to say, you know, have a decent roundedness to them. A little lighter than the Switch 2. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed. I have owned the Portal in the past, and those buttons were kind of thocky, if you will, and these are much better. I wouldn't hesitate to use these, and they probably wouldn't annoy somebody. But yeah, that's good. Good news, good news. Okay, we got that, so let's go to the controls on the back here. We'll do the joysticks last. So bumpers, clicky, micro switch. You know, unfortunately, those are going to be a bit louder than the rest. It's not the loudest click I've ever heard. You know, here's a mouse click. Pretty similar to a mouse click in volume. So yeah, there's that. And then let's see, start and select. Well, actually, let's do the triggers next. I'm kind of going in a weird order today. Yeah, so, you know, they've got a perfectly fine calibrated range, but they have a relatively short throw, so it's a little hard to get in between values, which would be good for playing a shooter or something that requires instant action. If you're playing like a racing game or something, you might have a hard time getting really well feathered input. Not because they're not accurate, but just because of the throw. And let's take a look at that here. Get nice and close. It's not a lot of distance, and there's not a lot of resistance either. These are pretty smooth feeling, but they're also quite easy to press. I would say they don't offer as much resistance as I would normally prefer on a device. So yeah, it's going to be pretty easy to press those in. And then there's the whole, I don't know, the problem on the Flip 2 was kind of a problem on the Portal to a lesser extent, but there's this hard edge here, and there's this pretty small trigger, so it doesn't feel the most comfortable in your finger. You know, I'm kind of nitpicking here. It's not like playing this would really be that bad. They're just kind of a weird shape. That would have preferred they were a little bit more sculpted or a little bit more rounded, maybe even a little bit bigger, scooped, just something to kind of improve the feel. That being said, they register input just fine, so I'm not going to get too caught up on that. Heading back over to buttons real quick, start, select. Pretty quiet. They're in a good place. I like them when they're up here. Nothing to say there. And yeah, let's just last look at the joysticks here. Got a square input by default, but there's no cardinal snapping. You know, these are typical AYN style joysticks, which means we should be able to pop the tops off and swap them out if we wanted to. Real quick here, prop to hype sticks. If you're ever interested in trying out different size sticks for your devices, they just make an insane amount of resin printed sticks. Like we've got these tiny little low profile ones here. If we wanted to pop those on, we could. They would still fit here with the lid closed, give us a smaller stick. I don't really know why you'd want to go smaller on this, as the stock ones are just fine. I do kind of wish, you know, the stock ones do have a bit more of a convex shape. I probably would have preferred concave in this sort of scenario to grip them better, but it is what it is. Let's see what else I got here. So yeah, we could do something more like this with the convex shape, but it is taller than the stock stick, so I don't think you'd be able to close the lid. It would be sort of annoying to have to pop it off every time you wanted to close the lid. Let's just see real quick. And yeah, it doesn't close all the way. I'm not going to force it because I don't want to break the screen on my brand new device here. You know, you really want to go out, you could put the kind of Portal size sticks on here. I think we're going to lose a little bit of range. Yeah, see, it's not quite hitting the corners, but it's actually close enough to circular that you could use it like this, although that plastic on plastic is rubbing and it, you know, sticks out comically high. But yes, Hypesticks make some real cool stuff. Thor might not be the exact device that you want to use them on. They're going to work better on something like the Odin 3 that doesn't have a screen folding over. But yeah, high quality stuff. So again, thanks to him for sending those. All right, so back to the joysticks. Yes, we got a nice big square output. We could probably change that to circular somewhere in settings. And we'll come back to that later. Anyways, so yes, controls, they do feel pretty good overall. Hey, we can open it up down here and have it on the bottom screen. Can I open it up in 2 places at once? Ah, that's interesting. You have an app open in one place, tap it on the other screen, and it moves it to that other screen. So that's kind of an interesting little thing, kind of cool. I don't know what would happen if you have 2 apps, if there's a way to swap them or something. Again, I'm gonna have to spend some time over the next few days really playing with this and figuring out how the software works before I can give you guys too much more info on that. But yeah, started meandering here, so let's kind of move on and talk about some other things with this device. Let's actually talk about ergonomics here, since we've got the device open and we're holding it. Initial impressions are about what I expected. The face buttons and upper joystick are perfectly comfortable to get to. The bottom ones require, you can't really, gripping it like this isn't the most comfortable. You need to space your hands out a little bit, support it, and then that weight starts to kind of rest on your fingers and it might be a bit more fatiguing. I don't know. Again, this is just super initial impressions. I'll spend some more time with it and give you guys some in-depth thoughts. But yeah, it's usable. I wouldn't say it's actually that bad to use the bottom controls, especially if you're using mixed like this, but this is not necessarily a D-pad first device. It's more of a joystick first device, but still certainly usable. And yeah, so there's that. The other thing I noticed while holding it up here is that this corner isn't rounded at all. So it does kind of sit on the meat of my thumb and my palm there. And it's not the most comfortable. It's not like that pointy, but just wanted to point that out. It is there. It does kind of rest. But again, you know, I hated the Flip 2 ergonomics at first from Retroid. And then after playing with it for a week, it kind of grew on me and I changed my position of my hands a little bit and it wasn't so bad. I still didn't think it was excellent, but I think similar situation applies here. At first, it's going to feel a little awkward, but as I get more used to it, then I will figure out ways to hold it that makes sense. It is pretty dense feeling. It does have some heft to it. It's not a super light handheld. So actually, let's see how much does it weigh. Let's pull that up. 366 says the scale. Don't know how perfect it is, but close enough. So let's actually, while we have the scale out, get the grip and see how much weight that adds on, and we'll talk about the ergonomics of this as well. That on its own weighs 54 grams, so pop that bad boy on. 422 grams. It's not heavy, but it's not featherweight. It is what it is. Wouldn't say that this is heavy enough to really impact ergonomics in a super meaningful way, but it does play in a little bit. So let's actually just talk about how it feels now with that on. And yes, immediately it does feel much more comfortable against my palms. You can see here we've got a nice rounded edge with the texture on it. Feels good in the palm. It has a nice little lip here, pretty secure. The grippiness keeps it on there without being worried that it's going to fall off. I kind of like that overall. You know, it gives us a little bit of an area to rest our fingers on. Yeah, for the bottom controls, it does make it a little better. You can kind of choke down a little bit more on it and then just use your fingertips on the triggers. And then you have sort of a, it's a little weird sometimes switching between screens if you accidentally tap the bottom. So you've got that. So if you're playing a D-pad game, this you can even grab it like this and not put your finger on the trigger at all. And then, yeah, it's not bad. I would say that if I was going to do an extended play session at home, I would probably use this. If I was out and about, I probably wouldn't want to have to carry that as well, but we'll see. I think we'll just continue the review mostly with the naked device, since that is what everybody is getting. Not everybody's getting the grip. So yeah, that is kind of the feel of the ergonomics. It's not bad. It's not amazing. I need more time. I got to play some extended play sessions before I can really say how good it is. But initially, it's maybe slightly better than I was expecting, but also kind of about what I was expecting at the same time. Okay, so let's take a look at these screens. We know we've got the same screen here that was in the Retroid Pocket Mini, the Pocket DMG, which I think is like a 1240 by 1080, I want to say. It's very close to an 8:7 aspect ratio, like a Super Nintendo, or close to a 1:1 even like Game Boy. So if you just want to use the bottom screen for retro games, you can certainly do that. And on the top, we've got a 6-inch, 120 hertz OLED. Both are OLED. So yeah, this is what I'm really excited about, is this is the first time we're seeing this 6-inch 1080p OLED in any device as far as I know. I don't think there's a single other device on the market besides the Thor and the upcoming Odin 3 that have this screen. So that is super cool to see. So let's just pick up a colorful video here. I haven't installed any apps yet, so I'm just using YouTube in the browser. I mean, what else can you say? It's got that amazing contrast. Let's turn off the lights for a second here. Obviously, no ghosting, deep blacks, amazing contrast. I mean, I could just watch videos on here and probably be happy. This would be a great little portable media player, play some movies on it. You know, that's kind of cool. You can just like prop it up, set it on your belly, you know, watch an episode of YouTube while you're falling asleep. There's some other things that this could be good for. But yeah, screen looks amazing initially. Let's see, turn this all the way up. It gets pretty bright, but I'll have to do some outdoor testing for my full review. And as far as dimness, it gets quite dim. You can barely even see it here on the camera, so that is good, means good for bedtime playing. And yeah, this middle range, right at about 50%, seems to be sort of just a comfortable indoor brightness. And then let's actually see what happens if we switch this over here. Oh, volume came back, but I mean, we already have seen this screen on the Retroid Pocket Mini, but yeah, it is also crisp and nice. So yeah, you could watch 2 different shows and 2 different apps at once and really go full ADHD on this. I don't think that my brain could personally handle that, but you know what? Why not? Okay, so yes, screen looks amazing initially. I really have not much to say there. Let's just Google like a colorful image, put that on the screen. Google image search used to be so much better. Now it's just like links to pages. Okay, yeah, so there's a nice, I mean, obviously, granted this is on a camera screen, I think it's actually slightly too bright. Let me get it looking like it looks to me in the room. And yeah, you can get very nice detail, very nice range of color on the device. So it is pretty beautiful screen here. Let's see if they have any default settings going on there. Let's actually just turn on dark theme while we're here. And we're on standard, but we can do screen enhancement, which kind of makes it even more vivid, although it might blow out the colors a little bit. Kind of depends on your preference. In standard mode, we can also do different color temperatures, warm, cool, natural. Those do affect the bottom screen as well. So hopefully they've done a good job of calibrating the color between both screens to match up. You know, initially it looks fine just on the home screen here, but again, probably got to do some more testing to really get in depth on there. But yes, the screens, they look really good. I couldn't possibly see an issue with it at this point, but you know, we'll find out as we play more, make sure it plays nice with shaders and all that stuff. I don't think we've got any funky subpixel stuff going on. In fact, let me see if I can get like a macro shot to demonstrate. I'm gonna do tricky here. We're gonna do a camera versus a camera. I'm gonna get my iPhone out here in macro mode. We seem to have sort of like a diagonal pixel layout, so that may represent some slight fuzziness on horizontal lines. We'll have to do some more testing on that. This isn't the best macro picture, but I think we've got some like lines of white and then white and red, green and blue. It's really hard to tell. I need to get a little bit cleaner shot with something better than my phone, although still impressive that an iPhone can do this, and see what that looks like. But yes, we do have sort of a diagonal pattern. So hopefully that doesn't represent any problems with shaders. We'll leave that for another video in the future. I mean, the screen on this is so dense in terms of the pixels, having 1080p on a 6-inch screen, that I doubt it'll look bad. I don't see any weird aliasing or line jaggies or anything like that, even though there's that pixel layout. But yeah, that's something to be left for further in-depth testing in the future. Let's go ahead and turn the lights back on and talk about the audio. Let's get some royalty-free tracks up here. In fact, how about something that I recorded? You couldn't have guessed from my name, Bass Derek. I do play some music, so let's see if I can find my profile on here. SoundCloud, Bass Derek. Mostly some rock music. These are some pretty old tracks, but let's just pick one out. I mean, It's not bad. There's a little bit of warmth on the low end. Could be a little mid-rangey and tinny, but certainly far from the worst I've heard. And we do have front-firing speakers, albeit they are just tiny little slits. They do seem to project the sound in the right direction. So yeah, I'm actually not too mad about that sound quality, but we'll do some more testing and I'll have more refined opinions in the full review video in the future. So we kind of taken a look at the major hardware aspects, which was my main goal today as far as looking at the device, but let's explore the software a little bit here before we close out, and then maybe I'll get 1 or 2 games up on the screen for this initial impressions video. So let's see, let's take a look at the software. So when we press the button down here at the bottom, we get initially this little thing here. And so we get the dual screen display options, and we have to do this, okay. So only top screen. So bottom screen is off. Not sure if it's truly off or if it's just like turned to 0 brightness. I don't really know. Again, we'll have to look at the full review, and we just get this down here. Tapping down here doesn't do anything, but if we press the AYN button, brings that back up. And if we do only bottom screen, then we just get this. Nothing going on here. Does it lose focus if we tap up here? No, it's not. There's no touch being registered, so that's good. And we just go back here and do dual screen. So that is kind of stupidly easy to manage. It's not bad at all there. And then, oh, this is kind of cool. We've got 3 brightness sliders. We can independently control the top, focus here, the top and the bottom, but we can also do both at once, which I didn't realize. And the brightnesses seem to be pretty well synced up between the two so that they work together. So that's some actual real thoughtful software design there with the brightness control. So yeah, big fan of that. There's independent volume controls apparently for what's on the top screen or the bottom screen. It really feels like it's almost like 2 different Android devices glued together rather than one dual screen device, but we'll have to tinker around and figure out how that's all gonna pan out. And then let's see, task view. Oh yeah, that just brings up what we've had open on the top here. So let's just do that. And then settings, if we go over to settings here, then this is kind of our heads up display. We got our current frames per second happening. Scroll back and forth real quick and get that to 60. Auto lock, so that's the controls being locked to the top or the bottom based on where you've tapped, but it looks like you can fully lock to the top screen. So now I am controlling the top screen, tapping on the bottom, and I'm still controlling the top screen. Again, very thoughtful design there with how we can focus the controls. Got our performance, standard, medium, and high. The fan, oh, we haven't listened to the fan yet, so let's actually do that while we're here. So let's see, quiet mode. I'm not even sure if that registers. It's barely louder than the fan from my light that's up above us here. So let's do smart mode. It's not going to do anything because the device isn't doing anything right now. It's not going to spool up, so let's just go sports. It's really not too bad, but there's almost kind of like a mechanical sound. I don't know if it's a vibration. Might go away if I tap down on here. Oh yeah, you can hear my... If I tilt the device quickly, it's like the fan blades are rubbing on something. I don't know if they actually are rubbing or if it's just like an acoustic. Okay, so that's weird, slightly concerning. Does it happen in quiet mode? That's super weird. I don't know how to explain that. I'm gonna have to do some more testing. Let's turn it off for now. Okay, so we can clean the memory, clear up all the recent apps. You can switch between Xbox and Nintendo style. Looks like it's actually default Xbox, which is the opposite of what these are. I have no idea what ban on use means. Maybe they just don't work at all. Yeah, I think it just turns off the controller. Direct power supply, I'm assuming that bypasses the battery so it's not charging when it's plugged in. Do you protect the longevity of the battery if you're leaving it docked? Vibration on off, self-explanatory. We can turn on the LEDs here. So let's do that. We like a nice purple, quite bright. The camera exposure blows out almost instantly. We can turn them down real low and just have a nice little purple there. Let's do that for now. We'll leave it on. Why not? And then down here we get our CPU speed, our GPU speed, power wattage draw, RAM usage. So that's kind of cool. Nice little heads up. And then this little, oh, here we go. FPS mode, tap on that to go between 60 and 120. My understanding is that it basically, as far as Android is concerned, drives both screens at 120. But of course, this is only a 60 hertz frame. So it's just like, I don't know if every other frame is discarded or 2 frames are combined into 1 or what, but there's something going on the bottom here so that it works properly and allows 120 hertz on the bottom without them both being locked to only 60, because I don't think Android can do 2 different refresh rates, and that was the solution. I've heard that can cause some VSync issues, some sync issues outside of the scope of what we're going to look at today, but yeah, that does exist there. So yeah, that software. Fan is a little bit concerning. We'll have to come back to that. I've also heard that this can get kind of hot. I'm not really pushing it right now, although I can feel a slight bit of warmth here, which Russ over at Retro Game Core pointed out with his thermal imaging camera. I don't have any fancy thermal imaging cameras. I can just tell you that it's slightly warm here right now, but we haven't really stressed it out yet. So let me go ahead and just pop a couple games on this real quick, and then we'll show those off, and then we'll wrap up the video with some closing thoughts, and I'll start getting to testing everything in depth on this one. Okay, so I just downloaded and installed a couple dual screen emulators here, as well as a few other apps, but I just wanted to really quickly go through this with you guys and try DS and 3DS and see how seamless or not that experience is to get set up on this device. So let's start with MelonDS and DS and get a couple things set up here. And I'm not going to follow any guides. I'm just going to see if I can figure out how to do dual screens here. Video, internal screen layout, top screen, bottom screen. Maybe it's just automatic. Let's just map our controls and fire it up and see what happens. Side note, I can feel a little warmth on here after installing a bunch of stuff and not having the fan on. I can feel it in this area. Maybe I'll turn it on to smart mode for now. Okay, so let's just pull up the game. And yeah, it kind of just works initially. We do see that we've got a dual screen layout at the top here, so how do we... it simulates the lid being closed. How do we do this? So, well, okay, so it initially works, but we've got our bottom and top up here and our top down here again, so clearly we still need to figure some things out. External is bottom screen? I guess this is considering the external. Okay, okay, we're getting closer, people. And then I think I need to just change the layout for the top screen, or rather the internal screen. So how do I get rid? Oh, here we go, delete. That's what I was looking for. Okay, center, center, full center, center. Okay, we got it. Back, save and exit my layout. Okay, all right, I think we're there. Aha. Okay, so this is considered the external screen. So you want to set external screen to be the bottom screen, and then you're going to want to do a custom layout for the internal screen that just displays the top screen, and you will get to here, and we can start our game. Touch works just fine here. We can swap still. You all might ask about input latency. I'm not super susceptible to it. I don't know if the input latency is good or bad. We'll try to do some more in-depth testing later, but yeah, it wasn't that bad to set this up once I figured out how I needed to do it. Okay, so there's DS. Let's check out 3DS. We've got Azahar Plus here. I don't know if there are video settings I need to do or not yet. Layout settings, secondary screen. Let's just system default mirror. Let's just start up a game and see what happens. Okay, so by default, we're just getting top screen. We're gonna go back to settings, layout, and then secondary screen, we're gonna say bottom screen and assume that this is the secondary screen, but I could be wrong. Oh, I saw a flash. Good sign, good sign. Okay, we do have the bottom screen, so then we just need to cycle the layouts on the top screen to be top screen only, and there you have it. We can also swap screens up top if we want to. The bottom's always going to be bottom based on that one setting we set, but realistically you shouldn't need to swap screens. And 3DS does look pretty awesome on here aspect ratio wise. I'm just at 1x resolution right now. No, I might have a setting for higher resolution in here. But the thing about 3DS is that we're going to have shader compilation stuttering. Let's actually get rid of these controls. And we still dig our little Odin pull out here if we want. We can get our specs. It doesn't seem to bother the bottom screen when I do that, so that's nice. Let's start up a level here. And, it's running fine, but you will see these occasional stutters. I'm not sure how accurate this FPS meter is, because it's showing like 120, which I guess is what the display is running at, but I don't think the game's running at that. I need to turn on the game's specs. And, it's running respectably. I think we're at 2x. Let's just see where I've got this Yeah, we're at 2x right now. If we wanted to crank it up to like 4x to be real crisp, still no problem running it on an 8 Gen 2. And yeah, but you see there, you just get that little stutter. That's just the nature of playing 3DS on Android in general, is you're gonna have that shader caching. So it's still not a perfect way to play 3DS, but if you are content with waiting for the shaders to compile sometimes, then it does look and run real good when it's not compiling those shaders. So yeah, setup wasn't actually too bad here. Using Azahar Plus and the MelonDS fork. I'll include a link to that fork of MelonDS that you need for the dual screen down in the description of the video. But that's all I really wanted to do as far as the dual screen goes, so good to see that working. Looks like there's some kind of weirdness on this bottom screen though after using that. Has not resumed control. Oh, there we go. Mode, dual screen. Okay, that's strange. I think we might need to, yeah. You gotta properly force quit or close out of those dual screen apps, or else it leaves the bottom screen black, as I think it probably manually seizes control of that secondary screen. But it is working, so that's great. It's great to see. I'm super happy to see that that works a lot better than I was expecting. You know, of course, everything like Android here is going to run perfectly fine. I don't want to download additional resources right now. Let's just do Brotato. And then, you know, in this kind of situation, we just do only top screen, and that seamlessly kind of pops off. And now we just have sort of a Retroid Pocket Flip 2 Extra Premium Pro with a 6-inch OLED screen. And yeah, it looks great. And of course that runs totally fine, no issues there. So yeah, I don't know, I'm looking forward to testing this out further. Initial impressions are actually pretty good. So let's just talk about that. Let me set this down and we'll put the dual screen back on. Okay, so now that I've played around with this for, I don't know, it's been about an hour now since I started recording. This video will hopefully be shorter than an hour. But overall, I'm pretty impressed. I think that the buttons are nicer than I expected. The ergonomics are okay, and obviously they are enhanced a bit if we put the little bulbous grip situation on here. And it feels, you know, decent in the hand. I do feel some warmth, so I've got a little bit of concerns about heat that I want to check out. I did mention that the screen had sort of a diagonal looking pixel display, so maybe we'll test some shaders in a future video to see if it has any impacts there. But overall, the screens look amazing paired with each other. This dual OLED layout, I really couldn't ask for more. It just pops. It looks great. You know, controls for joysticks and D-pad are maybe slightly less than optimal, but really not that bad. Again, initial impressions. And then yeah, just the feel, the finish, the overall device. You know, I'm not totally mad about the milky purple color. I know some people like it, some people don't, but it feels solid, feels nice. It's a really good size, and in fact, let's do a real quick size comparisons here. Here we are next to a PS Vita. You can see it's actually narrower, if a bit thicker. You know, here's a Trim UI brick, which is a small handheld, but you can see that it's really not that big, comparatively speaking. Got an original Game Boy DMG, which is near identical in size too. Slightly different profile, but about the same size as a Game Boy. And then we'll just bring out the Switch 2 as a large device. And yeah. Shows how much smaller this is. So yeah, it's a good size. It's a nice weight. Controls are pretty good. Buttons are not as annoying as I thought that they might be based on some previous experiences. And the dual screen was not as bad as I thought it would be in terms of the DS and 3DS emulators just working once you've set them up. So I think this is a very promising device. I want to test out GeForce Now streaming on it. You know, maybe play some Battlefield 6. We'll try out Destiny Rising. I got to get all this stuff downloaded and set up and logged in. But yeah, stay tuned to the channel. Like the video if it helped you find out some more about the Thor. Subscribe to see more content. Like I said, I want to do an in-depth review. I want to test some things about the screen, the performance, the heat, and all that kind of stuff. Long-term ergonomics and other things. But yeah, I just wanted to get this video out to you today. So thanks for watching. I hope everyone's having a great day. If you've already ordered a Thor, I think you're going to like it. If you haven't ordered it yet, then you will probably like it if clamshells are your jam. But if you don't want a clamshell, then maybe just wait for the Odin 3, as you'll get a bit more performance on everything except for Switch. And yeah, I don't know. That's it. See ya.